Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever just wished you could, get what makes someone tick? To communicate in a way that actually connects with them? Well, today we're going to dig into a really powerful tool for that, straight from the book The Art of Speed Reading People.
So, the book makes this incredible promise. It's something that feels, honestly, like a superpower. It's a system for gaining real insight into other people, a way to understand what truly motivates them, how they think, and even how they prefer to communicate. It's basically the next best thing to having X-ray vision for personalities.
Okay, so to really see why this matters, let's look at a classic problem. We're going to use the story of two salespeople, Rob and Stephanie, to illustrate it.
So, here's the setup. Rob and Stephanie, they both met the same potential client, a VP named George. Now, they were both friendly, both outgoing, but their approaches, totally different. Rob, he went for the immediate, in-your-face contact, just dropped in unannounced. Stephanie, though, she took a much more measured, thoughtful route. She started by sending a letter packed with hard data.
And here's the thing. Even though their products were pretty much the same, it was Stephanie's tailored communication that made all the difference. She landed this major account. Rob, on the other hand, his approach just ended up annoying the exact person he was trying to impress. So, you gotta ask, right? How did Stephanie know what to do? It wasn't just a lucky guess. See, Stephanie had a secret weapon. She actually understood the principles of personality type. She could read the situation and, most importantly, speak George's language. The whole system she used is built on just 4 key dimensions. And it's important to know, these aren't rigid boxes you stuff people into. Think of them more like 4 scales, 4 natural, inborn preferences that really shape how we all see the world and interact with it. So what are these dimensions? Well, they cover 4 really fundamental parts of life. First, how we get our energy. Second, what kind of information we naturally pay attention to. Third, how we make decisions. And finally, how we like to organize our world. If you can get a handle on these 4 scales, you're already on your way to being a much, much better communicator. All right, let's dive into the first 2 keys. These are all about how we handle energy and information. And trust me, this is where you start to see some really fascinating differences pop up between people. So first up, we have extroversion versus introversion. And right away, let's clear something up. This is not about being shy versus being outgoing. That's a huge misconception. It's really all about where you get your energy from, how you recharge your personal batteries. Okay, think of it like this. For an extrovert, their batteries literally get charged up by being around people. The more social interaction, the more energy they have. But for an introvert, well, that exact same interaction drains their battery. They need that alone time, time with their own thoughts, to plug back in and recharge. Here's a great way to figure out which one you are. Just think about it. At the end of a really long, draining week, what do you crave? Are you desperate to go out with friends, or does the idea of curling up with a good book sound like heaven? Your answer to that is a huge clue. All right, let's move on to the next key. This one is all about how we take in information. Are you more of a sensor, or do you lean towards what the system calls intuition? A really good way to think about this is with a camera metaphor. A sensor is like a camera focused on the sharp, crisp details right in front of them. They see what is real, what is tangible. But an intuitive, their focus is on the big picture. They're looking at the connections, the possibilities, the meaning behind all those details. And check out the breakdown here. This is really interesting. The majority of the population, we're talking about 65%, are sensors. So what does that mean for you? It means that most of the time, you're probably talking to someone who prefers concrete facts over abstract ideas. Here's a quick tip. Just listen to how people talk. Sensors will give you the play-by-play, the step-by-step. Intuitives, they'll jump straight to the conclusion, and they'll probably use a metaphor to do it. Okay, so we've covered energy and information. Now let's get into the final 2 dimensions. These are the ones that really determine how we make our choices and how we live our day-to-day lives. So the third dimension is thinking versus feeling. And this is all about your decision-making process. It's not about being smart or being emotional. It's about the criteria you use when you have to make a choice. So ask yourself this. When you have a problem, do you prefer to kind of step back from it, analyze it logically, impersonally, just weigh the pros and cons? If so, that's the thinking preference. Or do you prefer to step into the situation and really consider the people involved, your personal values, and the impact on harmony? That's the feeling preference. And that brings us to our final dimension, judging versus perceiving. Again, we got to be careful with the words here. This isn't about being judgmental or perceptive in the way we normally use those terms. Nope. This is all about our preferred lifestyle, how we like to deal with the outside world.
So judgers, they make up about 60% of the population. These are the planners among us. They absolutely thrive on order. They love to have things settled, decided, and checked off the list.
And this question really gets to the heart of it. For someone with that judging preference, making a decision brings a sense of relief. It's like, closure. But for someone with a perceiving preference, making a decision can actually cause anxiety because it means shutting down other possibilities. They'd much rather stay open and flexible.
When you look at this comparison, you can really see how this one preference shapes, well, everything. Judgers are driven to finish projects. They see rules and structure as helpful things. Perceivers, on the other hand, they love to start projects, but they often see those same rules as confining, as restrictive. It is a fundamental difference in how we approach work, deadlines, even how we have fun.
So, here's where it all comes together. When you combine these four preferences, are they an extrovert or an introvert, a sensor or an intuitive, a thinker or a feeler, a judger or a perceiver, you get a four-letter code that describes a person's core personality type. And that is when this whole theory really becomes a superpower. Okay, let's circle back to our story. Why did Rob fail? Because he just assumed George was exactly like him, an outgoing guy who likes to make fast decisions. But Stephanie, she succeeded because she read the clues. She picked up that George was a thoughtful, methodical, super organized person. He was likely an ISTJ, that's introverted sensing thinking judger. And so she spoke his language. She gave him facts, she respected his time, and she gave him the space to make a logical decision on his own. Look, this isn't about trying to put people into little boxes. Not at all. It's about understanding their operating system, so you can communicate with them more effectively. And just by paying attention to these four simple dimensions, energy, information, decisions, and lifestyle, you've already taken the very first step toward having that X-ray vision in your own life.